How did practice go from your standpoint?
It was a little bit better. Wednesday was very lethargic. I think the time off, and plus I think they had a real heavy lifting day on Tuesday, and it got a little warm on, jumped up over 80 degrees, but all the things combined, we thought that Wednesday dragged a little bit, and Coach really, he put it to him clear on it. And I thought they really bounced back and had a good day of practice today. We made a lot of mental errors, but the offense was putting in some things in their Wildcat system and a couple other formations that we'd not seen, and we were putting in one of our packages where we slide over and play a three-man front. So we're introducing all these things, and when both sides introduce new stuff, it sometimes multiplies on each other. But the attitudes and the effort and the intensity, and I thought the overall energy of practice was really good.
When you're doing a three-man in front, are you loading in with a 6 DB, or are you going with another linebacker?
We're doing it with the same personnel right now. We just try to get one of our ends to become an outside backer and slide those others as a three down, and really nothing else changes much. In the past, what we've done is always try to get that package with the people on the field so that we can stem into it and out of it and won't have to substitute. You can get stuck in it if you have to substitute. But what we'll do as we go through it in the spring, we'll get enough reps of it to try to evaluate the guys and see if they are capable of doing it the way we want it done. And then if we can't, we may have to substitute.
Of the defensive ends, who's been most comfortable dropping back in coverage?
You know, that's a good question. Right now it would have to be D Ford simply because he's had the most reps as a defensive end in a four-man front, and I'm sure they ran a lot of zone pressure last year. Carter has just moved outside from tackle, so it's something he's not as familiar with.
How's he doing?
But I'd say all of our ends, other than Carter, you know, they've done this before. It's a matter of just kind of polishing up the techniques.
How's Carter done at the end?
He's done pretty well. I don't know that he's a natural end, but he's played extremely well for his first time moving out there, and I think Rodney's been pleased with him. At this point in time, he's holding down the front, the #1 spot, you know, at the right end.
Does he have the burst you want off the edge? I know pass rush is big for those guys.
That's not his forte, but he's decent. He's shown some pretty good technique as an outside pass rusher. You know, doesn't have the first step. It may be D Ford or even Delaney. Kamaya was very disappointed. He got hurt so early in spring. Disappointed he got hurt at all, but certainly more disappointed he got hurt early in spring because he missed all this practice time. And I think he's probably a little bit more of a fast twitch. But Carter's done a good job, you know, playing on the edge.
Have any of those young defensive linemen, tackles or ends, made any kind of move?
We haven't had a whole lot of, you know, real big shifting on the depth chart. Jeff Whitaker has been the most consistent tackle, so he's kind of moved up to #1. But it's a three-way rotation right now with Blackson and Whitaker and Gabe Wright. A lot of those guys are still in the picture. I don't want to talk depth chart too much because I don't want to send any message to our players that things are starting to be put in ink. They're a long way from that. You know, I think D Ford has shown that he's going to play up to a level of being a starter, but we're not going to say anybody's got a starting job until now. I mean, until at this time, we're going to wait until the fall, let him, you know, work through there. But he's certainly been the best player in the front so far. Linebackers, I've got 3 guys that had any game experience. They're all a little bit ahead of the rest of them, but that's still a little bit of a work in progress. Same thing really in all our positions. I think our corners have really probably been our most pleasing position on a day-to-day basis. Justin Garrett, probably the best football player we've had from day one to now at his position. So there have been some things where I think we're starting to see daylight, but I would not want to, you know, put a depth chart on paper right now because I think there's still a lot of good competition going on for jobs.
As president and Jabrian Niles and those guys, have they made progress?
They've made progress. They've gotten better at a lot of things. You know, your level where you start at and the improvement and so forth, I think they've all made some progress. I don't know that Rodney feels comfortable right now. They're ready to play on our schedule, you know, play winning football on our schedule.
How much has Blackson's, him being limited with the injury, kind of affected just his progression this spring?
Well, he's had hardly any practice, and you know, I'm not familiar with him in the past. So to compare where he is now with where he has been, I couldn't do that. It's always frustrating when one of your players that you feel like is going to be a key element in getting you too deep settled. It's frustrating when they get hurt and cannot practice. And his practice reps have been very limited. I don't know what all he did today, but it was an attempt to try to kind of get his feet wet a little bit and hope we're going to get a couple of series tomorrow when it's full contact. But I don't know that he's had more than 15 plays in full contact this spring.
Jake Holland, as you've talked about, you've been comfortable with his maturity and his knowledge and all that. He's missed a few practices with class. Has that affected him at all? Has that just allowed the other guys more reps?
Yeah, it can't help but affect a player. I'm working Jake at both spots too. He's working the mic and the wheel. And trying to do that and missing the practice time he's missing. Hasn't missed a lot of practices. I think he's only missed 2, but he's missing a lot of meeting time and film study. And I think that can hamper your progress as much as anything. But just his level of experience and knowledge of football and the fact that he's played for 3 years, that helps him overcome that, but it's not a good situation. We've got to get it to where we don't have guys missing meetings and classes. That's very important, and that's why they're here. But when the game's over on Saturday, nobody asks you what classes they went to the week before. So we've got to get it to where they're going to be on the practice field, they're going to be in the film sessions, and they're going to be there on Saturday ready to play winning football in the Southeastern Conference. And he's been hampered quite a bit. So I've told him somebody's going to have to address it, you know, to have a shot to really be competitive for that top job. I could see a lot of rotation in that area right now. We'll see. Maybe something before in the spring practice might be better, you know.
Academic stuff, Jake? Like academic stuff with Jake kind of messing up the schedule?
He's got a mandatory class. He's close to graduation.
Yeah.
He's got a class that really is a morning class. And if we weren't practicing in the morning, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but we are. So he's had a lot of conflict with our meetings and practice times, and has been able to work through most of it. Thank goodness he's a senior and not a freshman, because experience and knowledge, he can kind of work through it a lot easier than a kid who's never had any exposure to football. So it's been a strain on him, and hopefully we can rectify all that before fall.
Tell us how Javier Mitchell's been out now for just about a week or so. What's his status? And also you have Robinson DeRizzi playing in the start of the second year right now.
You know, it was a concussion, so those things now, you know, as of a couple of years ago, they're certainly handled in a different manner, wisely so. And there's a progression on all that, and he's kind of, I guess he's rounding second base and headed for third. I don't think he'll get to scrimmage tomorrow. He's going to miss one whole full week, and that's bad. But he looked very natural moving back inside from the star position. It looked like, you can sometimes tell when a player has about 5 or 6 reps, this was the right move, or we got a long work in progress. And it was obvious when he moved from star to inside at the wheel backer, it was the right move. He was reacting to things quicker, seemed a lot more comfortable and at home in there, getting lined up and reacting to plays. And I think, you know, it was something we needed to do, because that's a position, the hybrid position was one we had to find an answer. Justin has really found a home, been perfect for him. Javier wasn't as comfortable there, and as soon as he moved inside, I didn't have him but 2 practices. A practice like we had today, which was very limited, and threw him in there for about 26 snaps in the live scrimmage, and would have had more except he got the concussion during the scrimmage. And I'm very pleased with where he was. So again, I keep using that same old word, but it's so frustrating when you lose a player for several days and they can't continue to make that progress that they were making.
And what makes DeRizzi better at the star as opposed to the corner spot?
He seems more comfortable up near the line of scrimmage. I don't know what it is, you know, like I heard Rhett before he walked in, some guys pull better from the right than they do from the left, and play better on the right side of the line than they do on the left. There are things so specific to football that a lot of times, you know, you see kids walk in the door and you say, man, that's a good looking linebacker, but they can't play. They can't see things and react. Or, boy, that guy looks like a great looking corner, but when they get out on the field, it just doesn't come natural. We moved him up to star, and all of a sudden we're blitzing him off the edge, and he's covering underneath instead of deep zones. And, you know, the things you see with your eyes, the techniques, the reads, the reactions, everything's different. He's a speed player. He's a contact player. You'd like to have a 6'1", 215-pound star, but right now, he fits it perfect, and I've really been tickled to death with his progress.
Does that make him a candidate then, not only possibly compete for the starting star spot, because I know you mentioned Justin's been very good at that, but with this 3-down lineman set, if you were to make a sub, does that make him as a possible additional outside rusher?
The package I was alluding to earlier, no. That's a kind of a 3-4 attitude. And the star sort of becomes an outside backer, and that other end becomes an outside backer, and a 3-4 type of thing. We got some other packages we'll put in for certain games where we want to go 6 DBs. He could be. What we did work on Wednesday a little bit before we call it a dime package, and that's where you take one of the linebackers out and you put 2 stars where we can match up man on 4 wide receivers, and he would start in that package. And having a guy like Garrett and Therese, I mean, those 2 guys can run. They're as quick and as fast as any player I've had at that hybrid, and they're both physical guys. They like contact. Cover skills are good. We're going to continue to make them better. But those 2 guys, I think, are going to really help us in our 3rd down package.
Do you plan to have all your sub packages installed by the end of the spring?
I would not have put that thing in it, but Coach wanted them to work some plays against the odd look, the 3-man front. We wouldn't have even put that in the spring.
Is that because you need to see your personnel more before you start?
Yeah, we're still in the, we're trying to evaluate guys physically. Now, really, you know, evaluating the guy mentally is important too. Because if he can't handle all that stuff, you're not going to be able to play him. So it is a part of player evaluation, but we don't need to put in 100 defenses to find out if a player can play. You know, we need to put in some things, maybe see him blitz, maybe see him play man, you know, maybe see if he can play against a tight end if he's a defensive end. A lot of things you do need to find out about him, and that odd package could be a little bit of that, but we're just putting that in so we can get reps against the offense. They wanted to see it more than we wanted to do it, and we're getting, the good thing is we're getting it on film, and it'll be a great teaching tool over the summer for the players.
You heard us ask Rhett about working with you as coordinator. What's it been like with him? Have you helped him along as that coordinator stuff?
He only said all those nice things because I was already in the room. But it's been great. You know, I've been places where you take off on 2 tangents, and offense is going this way and the defense is going that way, and practices get chaotic. You know, we need to put in our stuff today, we need to put our stuff tomorrow, and next thing you know, you're running defenses against offenses you wouldn't even run, or vice versa. And we work together a lot, just like we were talking about the odd package. We put it in, but we put it in certain places in practice so that we're both working on the things that are going to make us better defensively and offensively, et cetera. His knowledge of this particular offense is excellent, and his knowledge of offense in general is excellent. And the other thing that's been really good, we work in cooperation. Of course, Gus lays the path. You know, we will do this today, we will do this tomorrow. But he has us go and put practices together quite often. We've had a couple he didn't like, and we had to do it in pencil, you know. But seriously, it's been a coordinator, organized situation, and being able to work with Rhett on it has really been good.
Has he had any, you know, youngster moments or rookie moments? I mean, he's done this before.
Now, you'd have to ask the offensive staff. I hadn't seen him.
What has it been like?
I've had some senior moments in there in my room, so it all balances out.
What has it been like for you, obviously, with your 1 year as a head coach last year, to transition back to a job that maybe not here, but you've held for so long? What's that transition back to being a defense coordinator been like for you?
It's been pretty easy. It's the 3rd time I've done this. If you count high school, it's the 4th time I've done it. You know, been a head coach, go back and coach, been a head coach, go back and coach, and et cetera. But being in the same system that we've been running, we've pretty much been running this system for about 8 years at different places. And most of the terminology stayed the same and those type of things. Having 2 coaches on the staff that we literally ran the same defense before. And then, of course, Rodney's coached 3-man front, 4-man front, and anything you can think of over his 20-something years of coaching. But it's really been just kind of like putting a pair of shoes back on and rolling with it. And the organization that Coach Malzahn has makes it a little easier. You know, it's everything's on path, you know. And really hasn't been a very big adjustment at all. I've enjoyed a lot of it. As a head coach, I took the position of not coordinating either side. I wanted to be the head coach. I stayed more involved in the kicking game than anything. It's from hands-on. So it's been really kind of a lot of fun to get back to where you call them things, you know, and doing something.
I was going to ask that next. You seem like a guy who just talk defense all day. I mean, the passion that you have is natural. How much have you enjoyed just immersing yourself in that side of the ball again when obviously you weren't able to do that last fall?
It's really been fun, you know, and I'd probably sticking my foot in my mouth, but I mean, there are actually times in a ball game as a head coach, if you're not calling both sides, you actually just, boredom is not the right word, but you find yourself having to pull the reins in and stay out of the way. You know, it really is. It's almost a self-control thing where you go over that thing with the coordinators and you got a plan, and if you don't stay out of the way, you keep trying to stick your nose in it every other play, you're going to end up screwing it all up. So you have to know when to stick your nose in it and when to stay out of it, and then making the big picture adjustments and those type things. So it really is a lot of difference in what you do. Now, head coaches that run their offense or run their defense, it's probably a little bit different. They probably got to have somebody on the off-the-field thing taking a lot of that off of them so that they can focus, you know, on calling defenses or setting up the plan and that type of thing. But the original question, you know, going from a head coach who did not run either side of the ball and then coming back and coordinating, it's been kind of a shot in the arm, really, and kind of energizing.
What does Saturday's scrimmages mean for your defense position battles going into A-Day?
Well, the biggest thing that the Saturday scrimmages kind of give us that these practices don't is you sort of remove the coaches from the field, and it's a little bit more of a game type situation. So sometimes you do find out, you know, if a player doesn't have a coach in his face every other play, or if he can't shout out a reminder to him every other play, you find out about those guys who can really handle it on Saturday, you know, the big picture. Offense running what they want to run, and we're running what we want to run, and everything's not scripted so that you're working on certain things. So you kind of find out those guys who can handle the game situation as opposed to just being a great drill player. That's the biggest thing I would say. And then, of course, with the limitations NCAA puts on tackling, it's one of our 3 major times that we can go out and have a full-scale scrimmage. So it's obviously very important. You know, you can throw every day, and you can block every day, and you can run routes every day, and you can run coverages every day, but you can't tackle every day. So, you know, in baseball, they let you hit every day. And they let you catch every day. They let you throw every day. They let you pitch every day. But in football, they don't let you tackle every day. You know, I never figured that out. But, you know, it's just unique. It's a sport that has injury factor, and that's where it all comes from. So when we get our chance to tackle, we have to take advantage of it, you know, really do a good job with it. It comes down really to the player having a big focus on that day, that he's got to have a big day, because the next 2 or 3 days, you're not going to be able to tackle somebody live.
Ellis, we haven't asked you about the secondary that much. It's been a fairly consistent unit on the first group. I know you changed Demetrius and Trent the other day, but went back to Demetrius in the first group today. Just how is the secondary progressing? And last weekend they spoke about getting an interception. I think it was Josh Holsey who had it. Just how is the unit progressing as a whole?
I think the corners have really had a good spring thus far, and if they continue to improve as much as they have, it's probably a brighter spot on that side of the ball. Other than Justin Garrett, I think that's been the one bright spot where we made a move and it hit home, and I think that guy's going to be a great player at that position. But as a group, I think the corners have probably been the most productive, the most consistent. We've got some competition for jobs there, and that's what always makes players play harder. Safety is not quite as deep, but I think they've improved. The safety position in our defense is not easy. It is a very difficult position, physically and mentally. You know, you ask both of them to get up in the box occasionally. They play deep zone. They have to play man. They make 90% of our adjustments to formations, formation movement. It's a very tough position to play mentally. So I think they've made great progress too, but I would say right now we still got some question marks there. You know, who's 1, who's 2, and do we need to have somebody come in here and help us? These guys have got a chance these last 6, 7 practices to really, you know, make a move and lay claim to the job, or it's going to be up for grabs when we come back in the fall.